Michelle. How are you doing?
Hey, Cam. Good. How are you?
Good. Before we even get started, I'm going to jump us into this little clip. Now, I will forewarn you. I don't know if you had a chance to watch it. This clip is a little rough. But when I was researching our topic, I was like, God, this is a great way to start it because this is like, it's tongue in cheek because, of course, it's SNL. So, it is like literally what you should not do.
I love it.
But we're going to start it out this way. This is their office flirt video. And we'll just start off by letting this kind of do the talking of what not to do. Here we go.
So you guys working hard today? You're hardly working. Uh-oh. Looks like someone's working it.
Hey, fellas. Who's mixing up the testosterone? Because believe me, I could use a shot. All three.
Hi, Adele. Is that a tube top you're wearing?
Good eye. Just a little elastic basket to hold my peaches. Would you like some nectar, Hector?
You know my name is Joe.
I could use me a cup of Joe right now. And by Joe, I mean a cup of your man milk. I'm talking about your semen.
Yeah, I got it, Adele. Man milk can only mean one thing.
Yeah? Well, this boy's got one thing in his pants that I'd like to wrap my sweaty little mitts around. I'm talking about putting my hands on your penis.
Yes, and again, there's no confusion there. Adele, we got it. Thanks.
Well, speaking of getting it, I'm going to head over to the old icebox and get my oyster platter. What you looking at, fellas? Is it broke? Well, whoever wants to fix it can use his wrench. And by wrench, I mean that wrinkly thing that you urinate out of or have sex with.
We know what you're talking about, all right? Just keep walking.
I'll pause it for a second and just give a few little comments so that we don't get in trouble for copyright. But apparently she's gotten in a little trouble for innuendo, wouldn't you say, Michelle?
Imagine that. Yes.
Yeah. And apparently she does not understand what that means, what innuendo means. So, she keeps going. So we're going to let Adele keep going on here as John Candy enters the room. Well, after.
Hey guys, nice job on that Anderson report.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Hey Adele, you drop something?
Huh? Well, now that you're around, I'm hoping to drop something. It's talking about my panties. You see, I'd have to take them off for you to see my naked genitalia.
Yeah, I got it, Adele. Now, please just let me get my lunch, eat it, and then toss it up.
You know what you could toss my way?
What?
The meatballs you're hiding in those khakis. Talking about your testicles.
Thanks, Adele. I'm going to tell you something. You are very bad at innuendo.
There it is. There's the innuendo word, right?
Yeah.
And innuendo, sometimes that can be considered flirting. Of course, Adele is taking it to the extreme, as Adele does. But we're going to let her play till the end here now. I think we're good on the copyright.
Oh, really? Well, I want you bad in my end. I'm talking about your nail in my butt.
Okay. Is that what you meant? I had no idea. Sexual harassment goes both ways.
Oh, I'll go both ways, baby. Sure. Is this what you're talking about? Because this is what I'm talking about, huh? I'm just a temp. Oh, yeah. We can make our own sandwich. With us is the bun and you as the hot dog. And by hot dog, I mean that dirty man me dangling betwixt your legs.
Yeah, Adele, again, there was no question about what you were referring to. That's what I've been trying to tell you. You are very, very unprofessional.
Unprofessional? Well, maybe I should get professional and make you pay me to rub your boner. And by boner, I mean hard pee-pee.
By pee-pee, are you referring to urine or the actual member itself?
That's a good question. I'll have to get back to you on that. If anyone needs me, I'll be in my office. Oh, and by office, I mean that room down the hall with the water bed and the KY. Why? Oh, you'll see. You'll see.
So yeah, clearly a little bit extreme there with Adele. But it's hard to believe that was like just 11 years ago.
Wow.
Because I don't even know that SNL could get away with that. No.
They get away with a lot, but that's a lot.
It is
Yeah.
a lot. And the comments on that video were hilarious. Like people were saying in the comments, oh yeah, this was, the workplace of yesterday. And I'm thinking, well, I'm not young, I'm 54,
Right.
but I don't recall that being quite that extreme in the workplace I was in.
Yeah, no, me either. I think that's a bit extreme. Same thing. I think that might, I think it's like anything else with SNL. They take it to, they take the whole point and then push it over the edge. So
yeah. But I just thought that was kind of like a funny intro to what we were talking about tonight. And I'll let you kind of give us
the good. And yeah, welcome back to Business Chicks. We're a little mix of sassy and a lot of strategy. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Kim, and together, as I mentioned, we're not super young. We have over 60 years of experience in sales, marketing, leadership, public speaking. And in today's episode, this is something that, HR may want to tune into.
Yeah, because we're diving into flirting at work, power move or career suicide.
Yeah, so the kind of office flirting, that we just saw there and really flirting, right? And it's not always as obvious, clearly, as what we saw in the SNL clip. What we're talking about today, and, we've all kind of seen it, right, is that, wink across the conference table, the coffee table too, wink across there, the over-friendly banter, the stopping by someone's desk all the time to talk about things that aren't necessarily related to work, and then the incidental or, accidental lunches with colleagues that nobody else went, it was just us kind of thing. Something more like this. I'm going to share they short start so quick. I'm going to share another little clip that's kind of more along the lines of what we're talking about. And this is when Jim and Pam are on The Office, and they are caught flirting by Pam's then boyfriend.
We can get him to drive to Canada and put if we can get him to drive to Canada and put peroxide in his hair.
What the hell is this? What are you trying to cop a feel or something?
No, dude, dude, I was just listen. Whoa, God, I don't even know how to explain this. Dwight asked me to be in an alliance, and then we've just been messing with him because of the whole alliance thing.
It's just office pranks.
It's stupid. It's
No, I already talked about it.
I have absolutely no idea.
Come on.
Do I feel bad about betraying Jim? Not at all. That's the game. Convince him we're in an alliance, get some information, throw him to the wolves. That's politics, baby.
Yeah, that's more, that's more in line with what we're talking about, is a little more of that subtlety, right? Those little subtlety things. So here's another little, and that's kind of like the laughing at the inside jokes, right?
Right.
And, and just kind of, again, that subtle flirting. I'm going to share another little clip that kind of represents what we're talking about more here. And this clip is called "There's Two Kinds of Flirts," right? Here we go.
Sign language. are you deaf or something? Just kidding, because you can totally hear me. I just thought I could learn it really easily. It's really simple, you know. It's basically charades. Like
What's that?
it's like a guy walking.
Oh, we're just acting it out.
Yeah.
Hey, Aaron.
Hi.
How are you?
Okay, how are you?
Forgive me if I'm being too forward here, but I couldn't help noticing that your hair's not tied back and your clothing is kind of loose. You might want to reconsider sitting so close to the shredder.
Oh, thank you.
You're
That's a good
welcome.
point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I heard, you know.
So yeah, two kinds of flirting there. So what did you notice? What kind of jumped out to you about their flirting? Like, how would you have taken that as flirting versus just being nice?
Yeah, so a couple of things, right? So he's hanging out at her desk, like for no reason, and she kind of seems annoyed by it a little bit, which you know we've all had those situations. I feel like, and then he's trying to distract, right? Like get her attention off of him, off of the other guy. So it's just funny to me because it's also the way that he thinks he's flirting,
Right,
because of his personality and who he is.
Yeah.
Nobody would even notice that as flirting initially,
Right,
I wouldn't think, but that's his personality. So
Well,
if you,
and
know,
then
if you know the show, you know, right?
Right. And then the second guy, you know, he walks up and that's Dwight, right? I never watched The Office, but that's Dwight. He walks up, you know, and he starts what you think he's complimenting her, and then he tries to like backhand it. You don't want to like get eaten by the shredder, and it's like, okay, what were you doing? Now here's one more, and this one maybe because I'm female. Well, of course we're female. This one I feel like that I can see a little bit more about these two women and how they're flirting. Although in some ways it's actually more subtle, but I think it's to me more clear that they're flirting. So here we go.
The effect I have on women.
So that is why I have to leave at 5 on Tuesdays. It's to pick up my little sisters from school. We're really tight. We're like the Kardashians.
You know, you can run this stuff by Toby.
Yeah, I don't like talking.
Come in.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were with anyone. But I just wanted to bring you the brochure on that accounting seminar that I was telling you about earlier.
Okay, we're in the middle of singing Celeste.
Actually, you know, it was so much fun last year. There was a Sunday bar. I mean, I didn't have any, you know, to stay trim.
You should be heading back to your desk.
Okay. Bye, Charles. Well, you'll let me know. Goodbye.
She's such a special person. She's turning 50 this year.
I am aware of.
So what did you think about that? What did you think about that one?
So it's interesting. Now, so it's interesting to me because when I look at it, I see it as like rivalry between the two women, but not knowing of is it because of job? Is it because of a position? Is it because of they want his attention? Like, you know, what's the big picture? Because I'm a big picture person, right? So to me, that's what I'm looking at.
So what I was picking, that's a good point. What I was picking up on was her, you know, and again, I could see the rivalry, but you know, kind of trying to, yeah, we're kind of like the Kardashians. And then the fact that he said, you know, you can tell,
right?
And I was like, oh, there's a reason she's going to the new boss. And then, you know, the other woman was like, oh, well, you know, I got to stay trim. And then it was just, yes, there was definitely seemed to be some rivalry, but I was picking up as kind of the rivalry between the two women on the new boss who they found in the office. Yeah, the last three clips are definitely more of what we're talking about, right? More
exactly.
Subtle, and definitely can have more than one interpretation.
Right. And I mean, flirting's always been part of human behavior. It's the connection, the chemistry, the communication. But at work, you know, those lines get very blurred.
You know, and it's so interesting because like in sales, you know, in charm and charisma and personality are part of it. You want to bring that to the table. And I think sometimes it can be easy to bring that into the workplace and not mean anything by it, right? Kind of your personality, you're being on, you know, sometimes people call it. But I think the trouble can come when it goes from charisma and being charming, right, to being calculating more to achieve something that might not have anything to do with closing in the traditional sales.
Yeah.
Sense. Maybe trying to close some other deal, you know?
Right. Or
And
crossing that line. And
yes,
Mhm.
there's so many nuances to it because I think, you know, that's kind of the thing. It's if you're using charisma to try and win somebody over or to make them feel comfortable, it's one thing, right? But it's when there starts to be questions about the motives that it
Right.
can be another. And so one of the shows, and surprisingly, being in marketing and at sometimes in my career in advertising, I've not watched the show Mad Men, but I'm now like,
it's one of my favorite.
well, I'm going to watch it because these clips, there's a couple of the clips that we have in here from Mad Men that I'm just like really, really making me want to watch this show for many reasons. And so the first one is Joan. And I feel like, you know, Joan, there's in just the few clips that I've seen, right? Just the few clips. I am like, Joan is the epitome of back then, you know, and
correct.
Woman, like she could have been could have been a contender. She really could, you know, she was smart.
Yes.
She was very, you know, organized with it, aggressive, ambitious, but Joan really, you know, maybe a function of the time, you know, men were powerful. Joan really, I think, used a lot of those things in a way that got her ahead, but I'm sure not, I don't think the way she wanted to be ahead.
Correct. Yeah. Right.
And so this is how, you know, the entrance of Joan Holloway, how she would enter the office, which says a lot in just 6 seconds. Here we go.
I need a new secretary. So do I.
Joan definitely got attention, right?
Did.
But, you know, and maybe back then, maybe she thought that that was all she could do, or, you know, and maybe that's the case. I mean, because I think it's even set before our generation, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. So I think what you'll find, and I really love that show anyway, but I think what you find with her is that she knows how to use that to position herself to get what she wants. And it doesn't always work.
Right.
That is definitely her premise for she's using what she has and knows will work to get what she wants is essentially what it kind of comes down to. And unfortunately that was the time, but that, you know, we can't do anything to change that. We just have to understand that when we're watching her in this situation, she's trying to do what she knows will get her through. And that's what got her through.
Right. Yeah. And it did. I mean, you know, she was definitely queen of the office. But she also had, you know, from what I've been able to gather through the clips, you know, a lot of sadness. And another SNL clip here in just a second about Don Draper's guide to picking up women from Don Draper. So the character that plays Don Draper actually talking about how Don Draper would pick up women. And so it speaks a lot to something we're going to talk about in just a couple minutes, but I wanted to go ahead and put it here for a reason. But it speaks a lot to the idea that women and men and the things they do that are considered either flirty or whether they're considered charisma or whatever can be taken differently and depending on who it's coming from and who it's going to. But here is Don Draper's guide to picking up women from
Don Draper's Guide to Picking Up Women.
Hello, I'm Don Draper, and I've been fortunate to have affairs with many women. Some say, boy, Don, how do you do it? Well, it's simple. And you can do it too if you follow my 4 easy steps. Step 1, when in doubt, remain absolutely silent.
Hi, I'm Jessica. A little shy, aren't we? Marry me. I want to have your children.
See? 2, when asked about your past, give vague, open-ended answers.
So, Dawn, tell me about your family. Any brothers and sisters?
There was a man with bright, shiny shoes. I saw him dancing. until the accident.
How mysterious.
Step 3, have a great name.
Hi, I'm Nathaniel Snurpus.
Well, hello.
Don Draper.
Let's get me out of this skirt.
And finally, step 4. Look fantastic in a suit. Look fantastic in casual wear. Look fantastic in anything. Sound good. Smell good. Kiss good. Strut around with supreme confidence. Be uncannily successful at your job. Blow people away every time you say anything. Take 6-hour lunches. Disappear for weeks at a time. Lie to everyone about everything. And drink and smoke constantly. Basically, be Don Draper.
So
That's great.
Yeah, the Don Draper's guide to being Don Draper. But what in the things that I was like struck with watching that video is it's almost like flirting maybe sometimes in the eye of the beholder, right?
Mhm.
Because like a lot of the things that he was doing were probably intentional, but they could be taken as charisma or flirting,
Right.
depending on the person on the other end, right?
Mhm.
And
How they're reading it. Mhm.
and their confidence level. Because if you're thinking,
Mhm.
oh, Don Draper wouldn't be flirting with me, then
Mhm.
you're probably going to take that as charisma, as
Right.
in being charming, right? But
Right.
if it's almost like putting the hook out there and letting it dangle and see
Right.
what happens, right? And how the person takes it. And if it's, if the person's confident and they're interested, then they're probably going to take that as flirting. But if they're not either one of those things, they're probably going to take that as being more charming.
Right.
That's where some of
Right.
the whole dilemma comes in, right? And I know we're
Mhm.
going to talk about that more in a minute, but in general, all of this is kind of leading to that whole idea of charisma and charisma
Mhm.
versus flirting, and when is it
Mhm.
flirting and when is it too far in the workplace, because some of that, right, is just the nature of people interacting, male
Absolutely. Mhm.
females interacting, and it's knowing when and where and how to cross the line, and just in general that it's not probably a good idea for those young women that are out there. You and I talked about this before.
Right.
There's so many caveats, and we'll get more into that. But one of my favorite shows, and I have watched this one. One of my all-time favorite shows is Suits, and I just
Mhm.
absolutely love it. And there was no doubt that Harvey and Donna had this incredible chemistry, and
Mhm.
it's also a good example of how the chemistry seemed to ignite their work, but until the very end of the series,
Mhm.
it created a lot of problems.
Right.
And they were definitely, according to the series and in the series,
Mhm.
this television, in the series, they were definitely seemingly soulmates, but they really, really put off the majority of it until the show was wrapping up,
Mhm.
because it really, in many places, spoke to the problems with that. And how even though you have chemistry, sometimes it's not the best idea to get involved. But this is like pretty clear that they had chemistry, even though I wouldn't call this overtly flirting. Here we go.
Right.
Does this suit make me look like a vampire?
Yeah, a little bit.
Don, we're gonna need to streamline this. Give each guy a hard time. Before you send them back, give me a wink if they say something clever. Cool?
Okay. What are you looking for?
Another me.
Got it. Arrogant, self-absorbed, blowhard. Thinks he's the smartest one in the room.
That's why I love you. You get me.
So again, just short clip, but one of my favorite shows out there, and I think it's a good example of the whole dynamics of chemistry versus charisma versus what is natural and where it can go and the problems, and it shows a lot of that.
Absolutely. So, and it's back to the point, right, of like, some people don't even know that they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at industries, and I know, so I was a waitress for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in the service industry, that's how you make your tips.
Yep.
You've got that high energy, and, you're flirting. I mean, I have a flirty personality anyway. Like, that's just, because I'm just very high energy.
Mhm.
and that's just who I am. And when you're in that industry, it's the same thing, but it's the intent that matters, right?
Right.
So, there's even a whole TikTok trend, flirty or friendly, right?
Yep.
So the side-by-side examples, tones, body language differences.
Yeah. Let's see if I can find a few of those while you're talking about that. But yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think it is interesting because, as you were saying that, something that I hadn't even thought about, but as you were saying that, it made me think about, well, it's like almost in some cases, even if flirty is not the intent, because of the nature of people and in general, like being attracted to things like high energy, right? And like the Don Draper example and the mysterious and all of those things, it's like maybe it doesn't even start out as flirty, but because these are things that people find attractive, that maybe that's part of the problem, right?
Right. And spending that much time with somebody when you're working with them, again, it's different in the, when you're in the service industry or anything like that, because you're not spending that kind of time with somebody. But then when you're doing it in a sales scenario or a marketing scenario, at work environment, you're spending a lot more time with that person. And again, it comes to intent because maybe you don't even mean to do it. You're just being friendly. You just work well together, things like that. And it's how they take it.
Right. Yep. I mean, I think that's a lot of it. Let's look at the first couple. Hopefully they're short.
Okay. I'm back with more ways to tell if someone is flirting with you versus just being friendly. One thing to keep in mind is when people are really good at socializing, they're essentially flirting with everyone. So these are some tips that are flirting, but you should also kind of think about what the intention is behind it. First is in-depth conversations. So friendliness is often a lot of small talk, and it'll be that, how are you? How was your weekend? That type of thing. Whereas if it's flirting, they're trying to see if you'd be a match for them. So they're going to be asking in-depth questions about you, getting to know you personally. They're going to be trying to figure out if you guys are compatible. So if it's just really broad, small talky chats, that's not necessarily flirting. But if they're really curious about you, specifically you, not just the context of your life, that's a great sign that they might be flirting.
Now, see, I don't know if I believe that. I think that can lead to attraction.
Agreed.
But I don't know, and to be fair, a lot of these are just their TikTok videos, and of these the people doing them, I think, have great presence, but I don't know that they've necessarily lived a lot. Like she looks So I don't know what she's talking about in a more generic sense, but let's see what she says is the second one.
Another is they'll likely make it clear that they're single. So if you're talking to someone and you're having a friendly chat and right off the top it comes up that they're single, or like, oh, I went on a date with this guy last week, or oh, I'm on the apps, or something like that, or yeah, I live alone, just things like this, they'll likely bring
up hers and get back, because I think some of those things are young. Because
I think they are, and I think it's a very social side of it, right?
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with what she's saying. I think that if you're in a social setting, instead of a work or something like that, when you're in a social setting, it probably is asking more in-depth questions at that point, right? But when you're working with people, it's different because you ask those questions to get to know people regardless of flirting or not. You like to make those connections, and sales are all about the relationships, right? So when you're creating those relationships, it can come across more like what she's saying is flirting, even though that's not the intent. So, but it's context, it's settings, it's, intent.
Very good point. Let's see. Okay. This one, she looks a little bit older and she's actually talking about work. So let's see what she has to say. This is only 10 seconds. This is probably just an expression. Let's go to this one. Let's see.
Me, when I first noticed how openly taken and married coworkers flirt with each other at work. Like, excuse me, y'all are doing this in broad daylight with fluorescent office lighting. I used to think work flings were exaggerated until I saw Susan from accounting touch Jim's shoulder for 3 seconds too long. Now I can't unsee it. Okay, there's a whole soap opera happening between the break room and the copier, right? And people with wedding rings will be giggling over spreadsheets like it's a rom-com. Okay, it ain't that funny. Meanwhile, their spouses are at home thinking they're working late. Technically, yes, just not on what you think, right? It's always the ones who post my forever every anniversary, the same forever who's now making hard eyes over an Excel formula. All right. So, and the worst part is everyone at work knows. We all see it. We just collectively pretend not to because we need the paycheck. All right. I'm just sitting there sipping my coffee like I didn't just witness, emotional infidelity next to the printer. All right. So it's honestly wild. People treating the workplace like Tinder with ID badges, right? Like, well, this is HR, not DMs on IG. All right, relax. So, yeah, when I first noticed all that, I just sat there in silence, realizing adulthood is way messier than I was promised.
Now look at who's in the one that we talked about, right? And when you're in the comments, sometimes the comments are just the best.
Yes.
On these videos, right? You've got, which we'll talk about in just a second. You got Andy Byron and Kristen Cabot over there. Kind of, let's expand the replies on this. Ouch. And then there's another one. The worst place is the hospital. I worked in one for 20 years, and the stuff I saw and heard, the drama that would unfold, people are shameless.
I've actually heard that before.
I have heard that actually before too, because they're there so long, right?
There's a lot of hours that go into that. Yeah.
Yeah. And this one says giving each other massages. I'm not sure I've seen that at work.
No.
Let's see. It's insane. This happens all over the world. It's sad how normal it's become. Flirting for validation. Now that's a good point.
Yes.
I think sometimes you do see that sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone says, and then it all blows up at the Christmas party.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think that video was cute, right? And it's probably more of what you see when you see it, the kind of whole horrible bosses movie kind of
right.
thing. That's probably more of it, right?
Right.
And I mean, here's the thing. There are studies, right? There's actually a Harvard study that shows that doing things that some people may consider flirting, right? Kind of what that girl was talking about, smiling longer, and even what he was talking about, touching someone's shoulder when you talk to them, saying their name when you're talking to them. Things that like you were saying, that in the real world might be considered flirting, rapport building. They can be a way to, and get support for your ideas. And I don't mean like in crazy ways, like
right.
But I mean, there's whole strategies that talk about influencing people that say someone's name 3 times and they're gonna in a meeting and they're gonna do whatever you ask, right? Especially if it's a female doing that to a male, that is a strategy. There's how to win friends and influence people. They say do that. They say also that a female who holds the gaze, not the gaze, that's probably the bad word. That would be right, but holds eye contact for 1 second too long can usually get support for her ideas. And that goes back to the whole concept of the feminine wiles, right?
Right.
Been around forever. So it may be that someone's not like legit trying to score, but it may be that some of these behaviors are helpful and again, back to the whole concept of win friends and influence people, how to get anybody to do anything you want, all those videos that are out there on YouTube that are about using what we might traditionally, or might, if we were outside of work, call flirting.
Right.
Inside work, their persuasion, right? And that kind of thing. So I think it comes back down to that intent that you were talking about.
Right. And I mean, for women, it's the double standard again, right? It's real, where for what's confident for men is considered flirtation for women.
Yeah. And it's like that Harvard study, right? It says that women who use humor or warmth in negotiations are actually taken less serious, but men who do they're perceived better and they're more likely to get their way, which goes back to the idea that when you're looking at these videos on YouTube, and I am not trashing them because I think some of those things work.
Yeah.
When you're looking at these videos on YouTube that are talking about how women become persuasive at work, how do they get their way. A lot of the tactics, I think, could be interpreted as flirting. And then that's where I think some things get in trouble, is because it's that validation, right? It's like what starts out as a strategy can sometimes cross lines, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it, women are taught how to be persuasive, and men are taught how to perform charm. And a lot of these things are just totally different, but the same. And so here is one. And I hate that they start playing. There's got to be a setting for that, right? There's got to be a setting I've got to find that will let me click on a YouTube video. It doesn't start automatically playing. But this is from Crazy Stupid Love. And this is when he is telling Steve Carell how to be charming. And like some of the things he's talking about, if you think about it, you have probably seen some of these things in workplaces, but here we go.
I know. You'll eat anything, man.
Think you're ready, pal.
For what?
To talk to a pretty lady and take her home and show her your gift.
No, I'm not.
You're as ready as you're ever going to be. Play your strengths, pal. That's all any of us can do. I'm mysterious. I'm, good in bed. And you are a, stable and employed adult. You see this lady over here at 9 o'clock?
Oh.
You want me to hit on her?
No, I want to hit on her. The one behind her.
Oh.
She's a total fox, right?
Mm-hmm.
You think she came to a crowded bar to have a quiet drink alone? She's hunting. She's just looking for an opportunity to settle for a responsible and stable adult. And I'd like her to settle for you.
Oh, well, thank you for the ego boost. But you know what? Just because I've watched you pick up women doesn't mean that I know how to pick up women.
You ever see Karate Kid?
What does that have to do with anything?
You know when he's teaching the wax on and off? He's really teaching them to fight?
You want me to fight someone?
What's the first thing I do when I go up to a girl? I buy her a drink.
Yes, always. Without fail, you buy her a drink, even if she doesn't want one, you insist.
And do I talk about myself?
Never. Never talk about yourself, always about her.
Because bar banter
is boring,
the
so
worst.
You put the impetus on her. She has to be the interesting one. Impress me with how interesting you are. It's a big game. Creepy little game.
Oh, that's judgmental, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the night, what do I do? Do I ask them to come home with me?
No, you tell them to come home with you. They have no choice in the matter. It is your choice, and they are so overjoyed to have had the opportunity to make sweet love to you. Oh my God. You did. You Miyagi'd me.
You see correlations to the Don Draper stuff?
Right.
It's men are taught these strategies, right? I don't know if it's from their, other men, whatever, but these same strategies, they take that stuff as flirting, right?
Right.
That's strategic versus, I think that's where we get into some of the trouble is just some of the different dynamics of what we consider flirting, maybe. And then, so women are doing these things and we think we're being persuasive and we think we're, trying to win, support and ideas. And are men perceiving that as flirting?
I'm say yes, because of their mindset, right? And then the question is, when does confidence become misread as seduction?
Right. It's like we're using these things to get our way, to be persuasive, right? For the most part. Now there are women like Joan in the 50s, right? And then still probably today, I would say sometimes if you're insecure, they may be using those things in those kind of dynamics for those same reasons. But I think powerful, assertive, type A, achievement oriented.
Right.
I think sometimes we're using those things for connection, for charisma, to build confidence, to seem assertive and, knowledgeable and, and there's some of those strategies to win support that we're taught. And then of course it can be perceived the wrong way by the object or other people around.
Right. Exactly. And that's when it comes across. And you don't know how someone else is taking it in. Partially too, men have such confidence sometimes in themselves that they assume that everyone's flirting with them.
And that's a good point. So have you ever been accused of flirting at work?
Oh, all the time. I mean, because it's my personality. I mean, honestly, it's something that has happened a lot with me. It's, it's one of those things that unfortunately that's my personality. And especially when I was younger, I was very, just, I'm a flirty person. That's just my personality. And I've gotten it multiple times. And then a lot of times when I didn't do anything and it still was accused of that, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And
yeah,
I think you're right too. For any time when I've heard that, it's been in the younger years.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I think as we get more mature in business and more, which makes me wonder, is it a confidence thing, right? Because as we get more confident in our abilities, maybe it's less perceived that way. And it's like, oh, well, she's just using a strategy. You know what I mean? Like maybe I think that's some of it. But going back to those younger women, what advice would you say? Because if I were to talk to a younger woman today, and say, hey, here's what to watch out for, I would say it goes back to your statement, intent. But what would you say?
Yeah. So I don't think anybody should dim their personality. And I think we have to be very careful in the fact of not giving in to how other people perceive us, because that's on them, not us. But there is that fine line, right? You want to be taken seriously. So you have to kind of manage the perception. So you have to know the people around you first. So I think that's something that I learned along the way was to keep a lot more of my personal side out of the workplace, which I didn't do when I was younger. And I think some of that probably has to do with it too. And it's not about dimming, but it's about know your audience, I think, before you really come into it.
I think that when you said that, it just really resonated with me because, there is the whole idea of pretty privilege, right? I will say that I think it is definitely a little more appropriate or understood or a business tactic to use flirting or some of those traditional flirting actions and behaviors, influence, if we want to call it, when you're in sales or outside of your office, when you're trying to negotiate in meetings that aren't with the people you work with every day, because there's less of a risk. It's more likely to be assumed that even if it's flattering, that it's a business strategy.
Yes.
If you're doing it outside, like with a client meeting, and we're not talking about flirting like Joan did it, right? We're not talking about flirting like the SNL thing, but some of the things that could be are they flirting or is this persuasive or is it charisma, where it's more of the, repeating the name, holding the eye contact, smiling, what we might call demure, right? Some of those things I think are more appropriate or useful outside of your workplace, because I think it's kind of a given. Then I think pretty privilege works for you in those situations,
right?
But I think it can work against you in your own professional situation, because then it becomes, is that how she got ahead, right? Or is, what's going on? Like in that video with the guy where he was saying, we all see it, then it becomes, I think it can diminish what you're actually accomplishing if people think that it's those manipulative tactics, whether you call it flirting or manipulation or whatever you want to call it. If it starts to become that because, oh, well, she's pretty, she gets whatever she wants. We've talked about this in one of our earlier shows about how it's very uncommon to see women that are what you would consider traditionally gorgeous, right? And that are really put time and attention to their appearance in really high level executive positions outside of the cosmetic and fashion industry.
Right.
In high level positions because of some of those, I think, perceptions. You're not taken seriously. It's all about her looks, or if she's pretty, she can't be smart, and that's where I think sometimes people are like, oh, well, there's pretty privilege. I do think there's pretty privilege outside the office. I am not sure there's much pretty privilege inside the office. I do think, especially if you're using those flirting strategies, I do think it can be detrimental inside the office.
Yes, agreed.
And so, here's a little TikTok video that is just short.
Okay.
Coming to the point, right? Pretty privilege is what people say when they can't admit you work harder. You worked harder. So it's like, there's that, right? Does it diminish the work you're doing because you're using pretty privilege to flirt, right? That's one of the concepts. There's another video I found that I really, really liked, and it was about let me see if it's this one. I think okay, yeah. And this honestly, and I don't mean any negativity toward this young lady, but she's not what you would typically consider like she's very pretty, she's very attractive, but she's not what you would consider, supermodel attractive, but she has had some interesting experiences. And so it goes to a point that I'll make here in a minute, but I'll just let her talk. And she's talking about being a pretty girl in the workplace, and she talks about it from both angles here. So, and there's a lot of angles she brought up that I'm like, it's good points. Here we go.
You are a pretty girl in the workplace. There is a lot of things that you have to be aware of or to keep a lookout for, because of the fact that I actually have experienced this myself, like not the most gorgeous girl in the world, but I would say I'm a pretty girl. But regardless, is that a lot of workplaces that you go into, there's going to be people that will not like you for no actual reason. You could be so sweet and nice, and women and or men will just be kind of weird to you. It really depends on the vibe. Mostly the guys will be cool with you. However, they will be harder on you if you make a mistake at work. Like, they'll just be a lot harder on you because they think to themselves, like, yeah, of course you would mess this up. Like, if you look like that, like, it makes sense, right? Like, you're gonna mess up on something, like, of course you would, because you're a pretty girl, like maybe who isn't smart, even though that's not the case. And there are gonna be women too that either will just be like cool with you and actually like vibe with you, or there's gonna be girls that just will not mess with you like that. Like, they have no particular reason to not like you. They just don't like you. And then you have the fake people that are like pretending to be your friend, but just want to use information from you to use against you. So if you are in the workplace and you are a pretty girl, show up still as the pretty girl, but just be careful, because there are people that are going to want to look out for your downfall. It really sucks, because you do have to, if you're a pretty girl, you also have to be very smart as well to almost like compensate, to show people that you're not just like pretty and like sit there, right? You actually have good qualities to bring to the workplace, right? So it's like you have to just prove yourself more, unfortunately. Still be yourself. And I would just say this, look, I mind my business at work. You should mind your business at work too. You don't have to be friends with everybody. If someone's cool with you, cool. If someone's not cool with you, that's okay. That's their problem. Still be you. Let your presence bother them. Let it bother them. Walk with your head held high and do your thing, girl. And if there are people that are actually trying to like bring you down and all that, like in the workplace, just clock it. And, just at the end of the day, know that just keep doing your job, keep doing a good job, and do you, and you're going to be okay. But also have receipts to back you up as well, so that, if anything does come up, you can be like, hey, here's exactly what happened. It's unfortunate.
So,
Yeah.
It's interesting, because that's a whole other angle to it, right? That, if you are an attractive woman, then is everything perceived as flirting simply because you're an attractive woman? And do other women not like you for that? And are they looking for reason to say, things like that? Again, I think it goes back to that whole in outside of your workplace, it's appreciated. But I think inside of the workplace, it brings a whole other dynamic that women just have to be more careful, because things are perceived based on many different things, right? The way you look, your age, your position, it just, what it goes back to? The fact that women have to be thinking about all these things.
Well, exactly. And that's exactly what I was thinking as you were saying all this. And again, it's not just the men that we have to think about it with, it's the women that we have to think about it with. I mean, there's been plenty of, we've all been through the scenario of walking in and people not liking you before you ever even start for no reason. You know, I mean, and you've done nothing.
Yeah, and it's you know, it's so frustrating when you have to think about that whole, you know, it's like, again, back to one of those 3,000 things we have to think about, right?
Right.
Be friendly, don't be too friendly. Smile, don't smile
Right.
too much. Be pretty, don't be too pretty.
Right.
You know, be confident, don't be too confident. Be charismatic, don't be too charismatic.
Right.
Smile, don't smile too much. Don't
Right.
look, you know, maintain eye contact. Don't maintain eye contact too long. And it just is so many things that it's like, when do we get to
Right.
relax and just be ourselves? And I don't know, because like this woman has been very, very successful. The Jen Drummond, she just basically everything she's done has turned to gold. And again, we're talking, she's probably our age, I would think, right? And she is a very, very attractive woman, but she talks about how pretty privilege has impacted.
Do not work less hard. I think they work harder. They work harder because they have to overcome the stereotype of being beautiful and prove to you that they're beyond capable. You know, I think people look at my, like, who I look like right now today, and they forget what made that. And what made that is like grinding and struggling and getting up early and working out when I didn't feel like it, waiting tables, like hustling in every facet of life so that I could be who I am today. And so, like, underestimate me, I dare you.
When was the last time?
I love that. I love that line, right? Underestimate me, I dare you. But it does just go to the fact that there's so many darn freaking things that we have to think about at all.
Exactly. Yeah. And so then it comes to the when flirting crosses the line, right? What's the fallout can be brutal, rumors, mispromotions, or even HR investigations. And I mean, women pay a higher price than men do. You know, a man is smooth. I mean, we've seen it in the things we've talked about. A woman can either be, resented, pretty privilege, or, even perceived as sleeping her way to the top.
Right.
I mean, we see that in a lot of the news stories we see, right? So, I mean, when the fallout comes, the brunt of it, and we've talked about this before, is on the women.
Yep. And it's sometimes it's like when I sit here and think about it, it just feels so hopeless in a way, right? Because it hasn't made progress up to this point. And if you're feeling hopeless and you're listening to us, we're gonna bring that around in just a second. We're about to wrap it up here, probably in the next 10 to 15 minutes, and we will give you some hope. But it does start to feel hopeless at times, right? Because with pretty privilege, it can either be a privilege, but it can also be a weapon. It can be a tool for people to look at you and say, well, she didn't earn it, so she had to have been flirting with somebody. And then if you are using those charismatic strategies, then it's like, well, see, and then like you said, if there's fallout, usually it's going to be the woman that's going to get the brunt of it, because the man, in many cases, especially if it's within the same workplace, is considered more valuable, right? I'm really kind of surprised, and I don't know that if Andy Byron and the whole Andy Byron, Kristen Cabot, Kiss Cam, Coldplay concert thing, I don't know that if he would not have resigned, if they would have made him.
Right.
Now, I'm sure there were conversations going on where he was probably for the good of the company, you should. But if he had not, I do not know that they would have made him resign, because you see other scenarios where that hasn't happened. I mean, look how long Harvey Weinstein got away with what he was doing. The extreme of that. That was not just a relationship. That was unwanted sexual advances, sexual aggression. And he got away with it so long because he was very good at his job. He was making
people money.
He was making people money. And so, I mean, it's just, I'm going to skip our next video because I know we're going a little, we're getting a little long here, but it is, yes, it's not just women. And I'll let you talk about it in a second, but it's often women that get the crap end of the deal.
Right. And, men aren't immune to it. It can backfire for you guys too. We've seen plenty of men fired for sexual harassment for unwanted advances, especially recently. It's, especially since the Me Too movement, Elon Musk assistance lawsuit, that kind of blurred the lines, right? The power dynamics, the reputation gone overnight. I mean, you're keeping the brand clean. Like, there is that blurred area.
Absolutely. And, and I think that is just kind of the message is, and then we'll get into this in the next section, but that is just kind of the message is that's when it goes too far, right? That's when flirting is, like I said, that line put out there and the hook is hooked and it goes from flirting into something more. Whereas like in the case of Harvey Weinstein, it was unwanted advances, but in a lot of cases it does become the office affair, and while, you've seen cases where it seems so romanticized in the movies, I have not personally ever seen it turn out well.
Right. Me either.
Ever seen it turn out well. And usually I've seen the woman get the bad end of the deal. So, it's one of those things where, flirting, if it's used in the sense that we're talking about charisma, and confidence, maybe, but when it goes too far, I think it's just anybody who is serious about their career, especially a female, and because that's who we're generally talking to, I would say caution, weigh against it, real
Right.
hard.
And I mean, so reframe it to that, right? Like, could what people call flirting, is it just really charisma with confidence? Keeping in mind that charm is connection, not seduction, right? I mean, the power move isn't in how you smile, it's how you command the presence.
Yep. And I think, if you first of all, if you make it clear that these are what my boundaries are, like, for example, you and I in our workplace, everybody knows what our values are, what our relationships are. So if we smile, it's a joke, right? Or if we pat somebody on the shoulder. So some of that comes with making sure that you're presenting, like that one girl was saying, you're not talking about the problems in your relationship. Your relationship is always positioned as, whether it is or not, if you're going to say anything about your relationship, it's only about how good it is, right?
Right.
Only about, and honestly, you probably shouldn't be talking about it much unless it's with your close circle.
Right.
Or definitely probably not with members of the opposite sex, I would say, right?
Right.
It's always, it's very clear, like, for example, that I've been married 28 years. So if I'm laughing with nobody's immediately thinking that she's flirting to accomplish something. It's maybe she's being charming, which I think is going to what we're talking about here. She's being warm. She's holding eye contact. She's having humor, but she's doing that to influence me. I think that is the perception. If you've handled yourself right up to that point, the perception will be correct. I don't think it's as likely to be perceived incorrectly if you've handled yourself correct up to that point.
Right. Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And I think that's the whole point.
Right. And, here are some of the things, right? This is, if a woman has a radiant soul, she will usually display these 7 unique qualities. And so as we go through these, I'm just going to run through them pretty quick because we are, up on our hour, but I want you to think about them. If you haven't seen these yet, Michelle, and if our audience is listening or looking at these, I want you to think about these, because these could all be perceived as flirting. Again, if you do not set your boundaries, if you do not make it clear that work is work, if you do these things and it's clear who you are and what your intentions are, then I think they're perceived as charm. If you're doing these things and there's any ambiguity, then these are things that could get you in trouble. So it's all about that intent, right? It's all about what you've positioned yourself as up to this point, professional or, or not so professional. So she makes people feel important. She puts people at ease. So, that is really complimenting, right? Complimenting, asking questions, like you were saying, getting to know people, being interested in them to develop that relationship. She puts her best foot forward, in terms of, and it's not about looking like the office hottie, but you always want to be professional, tailored, like you put some attention into your appearance. She's approachable. And I think that attention into the appearance is what you see in a lot of these high-level female execs where they're polished and presentable, but they're not necessarily wearing what you would see on the cover of Vogue unless they're in their makeup. She's approachable. She is making people look like she's friendly, like she will encourage conversation. She exudes good energy. There's that word, right? Energy. And she lights up a room. This is where I think, again, it depends on what you established up to this point. It is being engaging, being charming, being complimentary without it seeming like, with it really seem like you care about people instead of like you care about what you get from them or what get them to send your way, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
And she's confident, or at least pretends like she is. So again, all of those characteristics go to the point that depending on how you've established yourself up to that point, depending on how you have presented yourself professionally, and depending on the parameters you've set, your boundaries that you've set, they can be charming or they can be considered flirtatious. So it's so interesting because it really requires some thought.
It does. It comes down to your motive, right? So if it's about confidence and connection, it's a power move. If it's manipulation, then it's career suicide.
Absolutely. And that is 100% true. And so, one thing I think is interesting is this is a really, really great video. And here we go. It's going to start on its own. And this is how to be charismatic without being a flirt. And I know that we're coming into our outro, so I think this is a good one to lead to get us to the outro. I'm going to put it on 1.25. If you're watching this video later, you can slow our video down and it would make this normal. But I'm going to put this on 1.25 and I might skip through it a little bit. But this is really a good video that I came across. And she's talking about how to be charismatic without being a flirt. Am I sharing the screen? Nope. Okay. Hold on. Here we go. That would help, wouldn't it? Here. All right. There we go.
Charismatic without being labeled a flirt. Oh, too often I see them trying to be charismatic, trying to use the tips that I've given on my channel before, and they come out acting like a flirt, which guess what? There's nothing wrong with being a flirt. But I think you know what I mean when people use that in a derogatory way towards young women. So I want to share some tips with you if you feel like you're falling into this category of people are saying, oh, you're just a flirt, and honestly, you're just trying to be more charismatic. These tips are going to help you.
She's talking.
If you are on the journey of being more charismatic, but you're worried that people are taking it off like as that you're a flirt, or that people are going to get the wrong like signals or ideas about you, here's some tips. So the very first thing is focus on everyone, not just one person. Too often we start our charisma journey and trying to be better because of one really cute person that we're trying to impress, right? Our crush. And so my challenge to you is to not just pull out these tips and your better self and your charismaticness, your charisma. There we go. There's the real word. Your charisma with just one person or one group of people, but that we make this a part of who we are. That's going to be huge in having people realize that this isn't just like a one-time, one person kind of thing. This is how I act around everybody. Following that tip is my second one, which is to make sure that you treat guys the same as you treat girls. Too often, and I could name you my friends that were different with guys than they were with their girlfriends.
I have a crush on every boy.
I best always to be the same person in every circumstance of your life. I want to be the same Abby J that you see on YouTube, that you see at church, that you meet at the grocery store, and that you see at Disneyland. I want to be the same person, and you should have that goal as well. So especially as you're practicing your charisma tips, and please check out my other videos on how to be charismatic and these tips that I'm talking about. But please make sure you're the same with your guy friends as you are with your girlfriends. And third, keep your hands to yourself. Now, the reason I bring this up is specifically in one of my charisma videos, I talk about being a big gorilla, which is so real. It's so true. And people, our brains love it. And it's just a psychology hack that when you use your hands to talk and when you interact and use your body, people perceive you as more charismatic. Okay. So true. You don't need to touch anybody to be seen as charismatic. I don't know what it is about teenagers, and I'm not like saying this derogatory. I was the exact same way. We're all about like hugging and poking and touching each other. Okay. If you are being seen as a flirt, then you probably need to keep your hands to yourself. So still be that big gorilla, still use your body, but let's be sure we're not hanging on people or hugging them or poking them, because that is one really quick way to get labeled a flirt.
I have a crush on every boy.
And my last tip for you is don't change your personality based on who you're hanging out with. That kind of is what we were talking about in those first two tips. But too often I see people more so than like, oh, I'm being charismatic with this cute guy and I'm not with my girlfriends, but more so we act different ways. Like I might be the cute, funny flirt Abby with my friends at lunch, and I might be the more serious, studious Abby in math class. And this gets tricky because I truly believe that all of us, we're not like a one sided dimensional shape. We are like these crystals and cubes, and sometimes I'm in a funny mood, and sometimes I'm in a shy mood, and sometimes I'm really tired. And all those things can affect how, I perceive and I give off my personality. But it should be the same like flavor of Abby. If that
Okay, I'll stop it there. But I think even though she was talking to teens, I thought that was so valuable because sometimes work can be like high school, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Can be, and especially when you're talking about school, and the same rules kind of apply, right? And you shouldn't be doing some of those things. So I really liked the points that she was making, which goes back to setting the stage of who you are, right?
Agreed. Yes.
Everybody, you are as charismatic with the women as you are with the men, and with the 80-year-old in the office and the 40-year-old, you're the same way. You're the same person. You may be expressive, you may be energetic, but you are that way. You couldn't tell if you're doing it. It wouldn't be any different with someone of the opposite sex as it is the same gender. So anyway, I think those are important points that she was making.
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
do you think it's flirting at work, power move, or career suicide?
I think it comes down again to motive, right? Yeah. And intent. That's what it's all about. It's all about what your intent is and how you come across, and be magnetic, not misunderstood.
Right. Oh, that's good. I love that, and own your own energy before someone owns it for you. Make it clear who you are, right? That's where confidence comes in, is if you have that confidence, I think it's more likely to be perceived as confidence and charisma if you feel it, than if flirting, to me, from at work, comes from a more insecure perspective. Like I agree. Just don't see confident women, even if they're, in the places I've worked, I think I told you my very first real big job was at Troy University. And there were some very powerful women, one of which, I absolutely loved her. I would never have accused her of flirting inappropriately, but she was so confident that she would touch your arm, and no matter you're a man or a woman. She was looking you in the eye. She was complimenting you. She was flattering. But it was, I think, which is maybe why I like that video so much, she was exactly the same with everybody. Yeah. But it was things that could be perceived as flirting if you didn't meet her, and if she hadn't already set that standard that this is who I am.
Right, because she created that reputation.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
Which is in a good way.
Absolutely. And so I think, that's it for this week's episode. Yeah. Drop your comments below if you've ever been accused of flirting, and your tips, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. So I would say that's it. But if you've seen it work for somebody, or if you know situations where it's backfired, we would love to hear those stories. Maybe share them in a future episode. So
and if you know anybody who needs to hear this, send it to them.
Right. Absolutely.
Hit like and share.
Yep. Thank you. All right. So any other comments?
Have a good one.
All right. Bye, Michelle.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Have a good night.